Hello students. In today's lecture, we will explore 3 pathologies that occur as a result of abnormal growth hormone levels. The first thing that we're going to do is review the effects of growth hormone. If you can remember, growth hormone is formed by the anterior pituitary gland. Let's indicate that here. So the growth hormone is produced by the anterior pituitary, and this growth hormone leads to muscle and bone growth. We've already drawn those figures from a previous lecture, so I'm just going to place them here. The anterior pituitary synthesizes growth hormone, and the physiological response to growth hormone is the growth of muscle and bone. To describe the 3 pathologies associated with growth hormone abnormalities, we have to start out with the human form. So the first thing we're going to do is draw a human body. This is somewhat difficult for me because I tend to always draw these asymmetrically. We're going to start out with the child, and we're going to show what happens when we have normal levels of growth hormone, excessive levels of growth hormone, and deficient levels of growth hormone. First, let's start out with the normal situation. So if a child grows up with normal levels of growth hormone, this is what happens. And so with normal levels of growth hormone, the child becomes a normal-sized adult. Now let's see what happens when the child is exposed to insufficient levels of growth hormone. When the child is exposed to insufficient levels of growth hormone, the adult becomes smaller, and that's shown here. So here we have a smaller adult. Now let's look and see what happens when the child is exposed to excess levels of growth hormone. So when the child is exposed to excess growth hormone, the child becomes a very large adult. And when the child is exposed to insufficient amounts of growth hormone, the child becomes a small adult. Now we've seen all of the possibilities except for one. What if the adult is exposed to excess growth hormone? What happens then? At first glance, the adult who's exposed to excess growth hormone appears very similar to the adult who's exposed to normal growth hormone. However, there are some differences. Let's identify those. First, the hands and the feet of this individual are enlarged, and let's indicate that here. Additionally, the jaw and some of the facial bones have become enlarged. So let's try to indicate that here. As I've mentioned, these individuals will exhibit large hands, large feet, and a large jaw. This is because the growth hormone is still stimulating the growth of these bones and these muscles. And so now that we've indicated all of the features, let's identify these conditions. The first one here, where there's an insufficient level of growth hormone, this condition is known as pituitary dwarfism. The second condition, where there's excess growth hormone, this pathology is known as gigantism. In our last condition, where the adult is exposed to excess growth hormone, this pathology is known as acromegaly. And these are our 3 pathologies associated with abnormal levels of growth hormone. Let's review these. So here, if we start out with a child, if a child is exposed to insufficient levels of growth hormone, when that child becomes an adult, that child is going to be a small adult. And so this condition is known as pituitary dwarfism. And that one is shown here. When a child is exposed to excess growth hormone, that child is going to grow into a very large adult, and this condition is known as gigantism. If the adult is exposed to excess growth hormone, that adult doesn't grow any larger, that adult doesn't grow taller or bigger, but some of the bones in the body grow larger, like the jaw and the hands, and this condition is known as acromegaly. And so this concludes all of our pathologies associated with abnormal growth hormone levels, and this concludes this lecture. Hope that you've learned a lot.